I don't know how I left, but I saw my body lying there, with which I had no connection at all. I knew for certain that it was me, but I didn't relate to it. I later realized that the ND served me. It was the important preparation I needed to be able to accompany my son Rodrigo, who was born later. He became ill, and I had to accompany him through the process of passing on, of dying. And at the end of the conversation, I asked him, please, that if he went to the other side, to send me some kind of sign from beyond. And that's exactly what he did. Well, once Rodrigo passed on, he immediately started sending SI signals. And he started giving us one sign, then another and another. Of course, we were open to it. I knew he wasn't dead. I knew he was alive. I was sure of it because of my experience in the operating room. And you can have that knowledge and that certainty even if you haven't had a near-death experience.
The A.J. Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast.
I recently interviewed the Spanish near-death experiencer, Gretel Botella. She had a near-death experience during surgery that changed her life and prepared her for one of the most intense tragedies in her life. She lost her son to cancer, and after he died, he started sending her signals from the other side. This is her story. The original interview was recorded in Spanish. It has been translated using AI. However, I have included the link for those of you who may be interested in watching the original interview in Spanish.
Since I was young, I had a lot of closeness to death because of family deaths. A sister died when she was 11 months old. I couldn't understand it. Later on, a brother attempted suicide and he jumped from the 7th floor. That also confronted me with death. He didn't die, but it made me face death. So I spent my entire childhood, adolescence, and youth searching for answers. But life had a surprise in store for me. I already had a son, and this was 26 years ago, you know? I was already with my current partner, and we decided that we wanted to have another baby. I got pregnant, and naturally, I had a miscarriage. The fetus stopped breathing. So, of course, they had to perform a curettage at the hospital in the city where I live. And during the procedure, which was supposed to be a brief, minor intervention without any major significance, they perforated my uterus, causing a subsequent hemorrhage that put my life in danger. Well, I don't know how. There on the operating table, I left my body. I don't know how I left, but I saw myself from behind my head. I had a vision from behind my head, and then I saw myself projected from above, from the ceiling on the other side, looking down. And I saw my body lying there, with which I had no connection at all. I knew for certain that it was me, but I didn't relate to it. I also saw the medical team. It was more of a general vision, you know? I didn't focus on the details, but I saw that vision from above, and I was absolutely calm, whole, complete, but above all, in a state of profound peace. It was a peace that made me feel that this was truly who I was. What I am, who I am, was up there on the ceiling of the operating room, looking down at that scene, and I heard the doctors saying, we're losing her. And I tried to interact and told them, I can hear you, but no one answered, of course. That's when I realized that we weren't in the same place, that we couldn't interact in the same way. So I started to observe myself because I realized that this reality about me was much greater than what I can have in this world and in this, with this body, you know, of flesh, and with this experience here in the 3 dimensions. I had much greater awareness, greater wisdom, the feeling that I was so much more than I had ever thought I was when I was or am in the physical body. An absolutely complete and certain feeling that gave me the answer I had longed for so much for so many years. So for me, it was a turning point. I don't know how I returned to the body. The first person I saw when I came out of the operating room, when I opened my eyes after the anesthesia, was my husband. And so I asked him, tell me what happened, because I know something happened. And he said to me, but how could you know something happened if you were under anesthesia? But of course, I had seen it. I had heard the doctors. I knew what I had experienced. And besides, it's something so real that no matter what anyone tells you, you know for sure that it's absolutely, you've lived it. It's much more real than these 3 dimensions. There's a sense of hyperreality and that feeling of seeing, of being so much more, right? Of being so much more than what we are in this physical body. So obviously, this circumstance, this experience left a mark on me. It marked me completely. From that moment, I was absolutely certain that we don't die, that we transcend, and that we are so much more than this physical body. There were mixed emotions. On one hand, I had lost the baby I wanted. There is grief there, that's obvious. But on the other hand, I had that certainty I had always longed for. Of course, when I came out, I tried to tell someone I trusted, and I was met with that feeling that they were looking at me and thinking, she's the one who had the abortion. Abortion isn't right, or she's emotionally unstable. And that's when I realized you couldn't just talk about it so openly.
Did this bring about a period of confusion for you?
I don't know if it's luck or something else, that I was already involved in the spiritual world before the near-death experience. I had already done some work and had a number of things accepted. So the most important changes from my experience, what really led me to change, was that, for example, before the near-death experience, I had decided to leave the law firm where I worked. I had a law degree and worked with my father, who had a law firm. And I decided to leave law to dedicate myself to, at first, we didn't know to what. But after the ND, it was right after the ND that I found my path. We already know there are no coincidences. And I started in the world of yoga right after. As soon as I recovered physically, I devoted myself to yoga. And from there until today, I have continued dedicating myself to yoga and Pilates for many years now. So that was the first major change in my life that, of course, has defined, it was truly a radical change. So I found my path right after the ND. And besides that, I later realized that the ND served me. It was the important preparation I needed to be able to accompany my son, Rodrigo, who was born later, when now I'll tell you about it. He became ill, and I had to accompany him through the process of passing on, of dying. Actually, the only person who knew the whole experience, my experience in the operating room, was my husband, who, since he was also part of my spiritual world, we were both in sync. He, of course, understood it, and of course, he valued it. But I didn't dare to tell the whole story to anyone else, except my children. When they were old enough, in my house, we've always talked about my experience in the operating room very naturally. Always. I've always told them not to be afraid, that if their father or I died, they shouldn't worry, that we would be fine, that we transcend, that we don't really die. We had talked about it many times, but of course, then you have to apply it to your own child, and that's very hard, both as a human being and as a mother. That's very hard. Rodrigo got sick at 16 and passed on at 20. It was 4 years of cancer. So, well, it was a tough journey, but those were wonderful years. Wonderful because love flowed in an incredible way. Eduardo, my husband, my son Rodrigo, who was already, of course, sick, and we went on a very deep spiritual journey. Rodrigo used to meditate. He had his inspirational phrases, and we used to play angel card games. We had always played them at home for many years, but after Rodri got sick, we started putting all those wonderful routines into practice even more. And that allowed us to be able to talk to him about everything. I was able to talk to my son about everything, about what death is, about the other side. And there came a point, the illness was very tough, but in the end, when he was already terminal, bedridden about a month before he left us physically, he spoke. I knew this was going to happen, but I don't know, as a mother, as a human being, it was hard for me. It was really hard. But the day my son took my hands, we looked each other in the eyes, and he said to me, "Mom, I think this is going to get the best of me." At that moment, my heart skipped a beat, obviously, because it's something so intense. It's the hardest experience of my life, the toughest and most difficult conversation I've ever had. But everything just flowed. I truly believe we were being guided. It flowed. I couldn't lie to him, obviously. He was terminally ill, and the most likely thing was that he would go. So I told him, "Don't worry, sweetheart. If you go, your grandparents and a lot of beings of light will be there to help you. And if you stay," because also, on the other hand, I wanted to leave a door open to hope, because sometimes the soul makes a sudden turn, like what happened with my brother, who, even though he jumped from a 7th floor, well, he's perfectly fine now, after his surgeries, of course, but he survived. You never know if there might be a sudden change. But then I spoke with complete honesty. We talked about reincarnation, like school courses. We talked about the afterlife. We talked about how the only thing we truly have is the present. And honestly, with Rodri's illness, that was one of the greatest lessons we learned. We lived in the present because it was all we had. The future was absolutely uncertain, but the future, even tomorrow, was uncertain. And that made us, well, just that, be absolutely kind, loving. He was the most empathetic person in the world. He would calm us down, and communication just flowed. Love flowed in an incredible way. But after that conversation, at the end of it, I also told him, of course, that if he had to go, not to worry, that we would be okay. And at the end of the conversation, I asked him, please, that if he went to the other side, to send me some kind of sign from beyond. And that's exactly what he did. Well, Rodri's experience during this last month after that conversation was very tough, but also wonderful, because we saw how the soul acted his soul, how he was no longer just a 20-year-old kid, but a powerful and immense being who accepted what was coming to him. He didn't resign himself. Instead, he accepted it with a smile and embraced the experience he was living and helped us get through it. He gave us peace, calmed us, supported us, even took care of us. So it was a very tough experience, very tough, but one filled with so much love that I would go through it again as many times as necessary. The morning he passed away, it was a Monday. He was already sedated with that breathing that signals the end is near. But I was restless, because that breathing, even though I knew he was no longer really there, we still had to give him permission to go. And then at a certain moment, I was left alone in the room, and I said to him, Rodri, get out of there, leave your body, go toward the light, see what's out there. And at that exact moment, the doctor arrived, the female doctor. We opened the door to talk to her. And the moment we opened the door and spoke with her for a moment, when we came back, he was already gone. In an act of love, he left us, sparing us that final breath, which I imagine must be so hard. Well, once Rodrigo passed on, as he has always been a very responsible, very obedient, and very communicative boy, he immediately started sending SI signals. And he started giving us one sign, then another and another. Of course, we were open to it. I knew he wasn't dead. I knew he was alive. I was sure of it because of my experience in the operating room. So we were absolutely open, even though we were in a lot of pain. That's normal because, of course, you know that physically you'll never have your child with you again. But on the other hand, we were absolutely open. So those signs kept coming one after another and another and another. And I decided that I had to change and do things differently. Just like when I had the experience in the operating room, I kept quiet and only told my husband and my children. This time I couldn't do the same. Once you've lost a child, you say, I don't care if people think I'm crazy. I just don't care. And so with every person we met or spoke with, I would tell them about the signs that Rodrigo was sending us. What happened was that when I mentioned those signs, they would say to me, well, I've received them too. I've dreamed about him and he told me this, or this happened to me, or I had this feeling in my body. And then I realized that it wasn't just us, but that many people were receiving those signs. People from his circle, his friends, our friends, family members, people from different parts of Spain, from other places. So he had gone out of his way to give wonderful signs so that people would know he was okay. And well, that continued. It went on like that. And it's true that I started a routine of communicating with Rodri from the very first day. Besides meditating and talking to him, I used the cards we had used at home for 25 years, the angel cards, and I decided that from then on, he would be the one answering me. So I started that routine of communicating with him, which I still keep up to this day. Now it's been almost 4.5 years since Rodrigo passed away. And what happened? Well, as you start focusing on the spiritual world and developing those daily routines, certain abilities also begin to awaken. So, well, suddenly after about 6 months, I already had more than 50 signs and, I heard in my left ear, because that's where I hear Rodri, he said, write a book. So I wrote a book. The book flowed wonderfully. I wrote it in less than 3 months in the spare moments I had during the week between classes. On weekends, we go away, so it was only during the week and in little bits of free time. And it flowed wonderfully. It was written very quickly. I'm sure he helped me. I have no doubt about it. And then the book was published, and little by little talk started happening, and we began speaking with grieving parents. Rodrigo kept sending more and more signs. So, in the end, he pushed us toward that vital change, which, even though we were already into spirituality, we had to really commit. We had to step out. I've had to step into the spotlight and speak, just like I'm doing with you now, to share my experience. And all of this has strengthened my ongoing relationship with him. So we've found wonderful ways to communicate, and I continue to stay in touch with my son in many different ways. I'm certain that this is a soul agreement. I'm absolutely sure of it, because when you look back, you start connecting the dots and realize that things that have happened in your life make sense and show you that there's been an agreement. I'm absolutely certain this has been a soul agreement. And in fact, he is accompanying us, guiding us through every stage of this after his physical passing. He shows us the way, what we should do, what we shouldn't do. Things come up and we let ourselves be guided. I speak in a plural because my husband, even though he hasn't had a near-death experience, he's with me in everything and he guides us. So yes, I am absolutely convinced that this is a prior agreement we made before incarnating. What gives me the most satisfaction is being able to help people who are grieving.
What would you say to someone who has just lost their child or a loved one about death?
Well, I would say that I can't put myself in their shoes because I have the experience that it doesn't exist, but who have lost what, for me, the thing I love most in this world, which is my son. Well, I have had that certainty and I know that he is alive. I don't know if this can help, but also if you focus a little on the spiritual world, when you lose a child, when you have nothing more important left to lose, or your loved one, your father or your mother or your brother, the loss that affects you so deeply, when you open yourself to the spiritual world, you start to understand things. I realize as a mother who has gone through and is still going through the grieving process for my son, that when I focus on what I don't have, his physical presence that I miss, I feel bad. But when I turn my attention to what he is now, that beautiful being of light who is with me, who nurtures me, inspires me, and guides me, I feel good. So I know that my work, my task regarding myself, my personal work is to always keep refocusing my gaze toward the spiritual world. I recommend that people at least do some research, that they watch videos like the ones you make, that they investigate, because there truly is a whole world to explore. And you can have that knowledge and that certainty even if you haven't had a near-death experience. You can still receive those wonderful signs that also give you the certainty that they are there, that they are alive, and that they continue by your side.
Have you ever had a near-death experience? Or maybe a spiritually transformative experience? Or perhaps you're simply interested in the topic? In any of these cases, we invite you to join the online meetings of IANDS Colombia. They are completely free.
We are the first Latin American group of the International Association for Near-Death Studies, IANDS.
We offer you, completely free of charge, specialized talks and online meetings to share experiences. We welcome Spanish-speaking members from all over the world.
If you've had a near-death experience, a spiritually transformative experience, or are simply interested in the topic, we invite you to join our international online group.
Our experience-sharing meetings are held online and provide you with a private and safe space to share your near-death experience.
Your mystical, spiritual, or paranormal experiences. You can listen to the experiences of others and remain silent if you wish.
Meet people with experiences and interests similar to yours.
You can keep your anonymity with your camera on or off.
And share any questions or doubts you may have. Our sharing meetings are not recorded and photos are not allowed, in order to respect the privacy of our participants. For more details, look for our contact information in the description of this video. Register now completely free to be included in our email list and stay informed about all our events.
Sign up now.
This has been the AJ Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe.